Hello everyone, welcome to New TV. This week we'll be talking about the Golden Vendor. Every week I'll be giving a review, so let's go straight at it. I hope everyone's enjoying their weekend.
Undaunted.
Keep in mind before we begin, if you have a ton of AP and you're willing to waste as much as possible, that's your preference, that's your choice. I would just be recommending what is the best for the week and what is the worst for the week. Thank you. Alright, so now let's begin. We'll start with Infernal Guardian. So Infernal Guardian, let's see what it does. First of all, where does it come from? Infernal Guardian comes from City of Ash 1. That is a non-DLC dungeon where pretty much anyone from Pug, from not experienced, can easily get. If you run solo and you don't have anybody to play with, you can easily just pug it, random queue it, and most people without a heartbeat will probably just clear it. And it is on vet. With that being said, what does it do? It applies a damage shield to yourself or an ally. You have a 50% chance to lob 3 mortars over 2 seconds at the furthest enemy from you that each deal 1889 flame damage to an enemy's 5 meters. 6-second cooldown. Used to be a lot better. They nerfed it a bit. Damage is pretty niche at the moment. I would not recommend you buy it in the traders simply because one, it's a bit nerfed. There are better sets out there, and 2, because you can almost anyone can easily get this at City of Ash 1 on vet with no problem. So I will save your AP for this one. Next thing we have is the Stonehusk Geese. Alright, so let's take a look at the Stonehusk Geese. This one comes from Stone Garden DLC dungeon. I believe it is the DLC Stone Thorn. What does it do? Enemies touching the teeter take 651 physical damage every 1 second, and you gain a stack of heart strain up to 15 stacks. 10-second cooldown. At the moment it's niche. I would say keep it in your coffin, keep it in the bag. This does have potential. I believe it will get better with time. Right now it's just pretty niche at the moment. It's pretty low. Some people might be able to work it around in their builds. There are better helms out there at the moment, even though keep in mind monster helms are perfect. With that being said, I would, because it's a DLC dungeon, if you're a PvPer and you're not a PvEer where you have a hard time getting into DLC or complete DLC dungeons, this one might be a bit challenging for you. So if that's the case, go ahead and spend your AP. If you don't have problem clearing a DLC dungeon because it's niche at the moment, then I would recommend save your AP. That goes for the monster helms. Now we'll go to the golden jewelry, and we have Bug Raider's ring. Let's take a look at Bug Raider's ring. That comes from the overland of the location Blackwood. DLC requirement is Blackwood. With that being said, let's take a look what it does. I believe it's a resource set. Easily you can tell it's tank, bunch of resources, magica, health and stamina. When an enemy you have recently damaged dies, gives you 10 ultimate, increase your health recover by 1156 for 10 seconds. The cooldown is 10 seconds. So it's a pretty instant cooldown because if it lasts for 10 seconds and the effect is 10 seconds. With that being said, at the moment, not a terrible one, but with so many tank sets being out there, niche at best as well. However, because it is overland, and if you are running solo, where you're not too much of a group team player, then maybe you can probably spend an AP. Niche at best, not a terrible, but not great either, with so many tank sets being there. That would be your preference. In my case, would I buy it in the Golden Vendor? Probably not. Alright, then we have the Grizzly's Gourmet Ring. Grizzly's Gourmet Ring comes from another niche but fun set, and I can see why people want to get this one. This one comes from the Red Petal Bastion Vet DLC dungeon. DLC requirement is Awaken Flame. Same thing. If I would recommend you get this simply if you're not a PvEer where you have trouble getting into completing DLC vet content. If you don't have trouble completing DLC content, then I would probably say not get it. I mean, unless you're really into the delight. What does it do? Light attack damage grants you a stack of Baker's Delight for 5 seconds. When you gain 3 stacks, you create a soup rule next to you. Sounds pretty cool, nice and dandy. Restore, gain in power, gain major force. Like I did say, at the moment it's niche, but it is fun and it does have potential for the future. So at best, deposit it into your bank for future references. Finally, I think the best jewelry piece or the thing in the vendor for this week that I think is the best in the vendor for this week, simply, and I will say, is Jorah's Guidance Ring. That comes from the DLC Scale Collar Peak. That DLC, I believe the name of it, yes, Dragon Bones Scale Collar Peak. Would I recommend getting this? Well, it is a healing set. You can see the recoveries. While in combat, increase the duration of all major buffs, minor buffs, and damage shields you apply to yourself and abilities by 40%. People still use this. You can mix and match it. You can put it in your arsenal. Like I said, there is a ton of healing sets that people can use. You don't necessarily have to use this one. But would I recommend getting it? Yes, and here's the reason why. It's golden. AP is much cheaper than gold. As well as it is a DLC scale collar. Even for PvEers who do scale collar all the time, it could be time consuming, and just several factors. It is a good piece of jewelry, so I will recommend getting it. That's probably the best for the vendor for this week. Now the worst for this week is Vampire Lord's Ring, and here's the reason why. There's so many factors. First of all, it is from Bankurai Overland. That's a cool thing. You can get it from the Overland, so spending a ton of AP for this one really wouldn't be worth it. And here's the reason why. Even if you were to get it from the Overland, at the moment it's seriously outdated. This is what it does: increases the bonuses of penalties of your vampire stage depending on how far you progress. And here are the stages: the cost, flame, damage, regular ability. Here's the problem with this: this set is completely useless unless you're a vampire. That number one. Number two, even if you were a vampire, you wouldn't be using this because it's outdated. With all the changes, the buffs, and the nerfs they've done to the vampire, this set would just not be worth using. Most people use stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 for the damage and the health buff. Even if you were Nietzsche or for fun, use other higher stages, other sets will still be much better to use than to use this. It's pretty useless at the moment. I want to be nice about this, but I have to say how it is. Maybe later on they'll fix it. So with that being said, I hope you enjoy. Every week we'll be talking about the vendor. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.